In a recent interview, the Saudi Prince Bandar Bin Sultan accused the Palestinian leaders of failing its people. The scathing remarks marked the first for Saudi Arabia and raised an important question. Is Saudi Arabia's support for the Palestinian cause slowly eroding? Will it be next in line for a peace with Israel?
سمعته من القيادات الفلسطينية في
Liars, cheats, and ungrateful. That was the assessment of one of Saudi Arabia's most senior royals, Bandar bin Sultan, on decades of Palestinian leadership. It is also curiously close to the language employed for decades by Israel's right-wing peace rejectionists. Former Saudi ambassador to the US, Prince Bandar bin Sultan Al Saud, chastises the Palestinian leadership for its conduct following Israel's peace and normalization agreements with the UAE and Bahrain. After decades of preaching that Israel was the enemy, the Saudis are now pushing new messages about the Jewish state. His comments were made in an interview with the Al Arabiya network.
What I heard from Palestinian leadership in recent days was truly painful to hear. This low level of discourse is not what we expect from officials who seek to gain global support for their cause. Their transgression against the Gulf states' leadership with this reprehensible discourse is entirely unacceptable.
Palestinian leaders have described the Abraham Accords as a betrayal and a stab in the back. Prince Bandar spent a remarkable 22 years as Saudi ambassador to Washington and was so close to former US President George W. Bush that he was often nicknamed Bandar bin Bush. He spoke of the historic failures of the Palestinian leadership. According to him, Palestine has taken Saudi's support for granted.
The Palestinian cause is a just cause, but its advocates are failures. And the Israeli cause is unjust, but its advocates have proven to be successful. That sums up the events of the last 70 or 75 years. There is also something that successive Palestinian leadership historically share in common. They always bet on the losing side, and that comes at a price.
It is obvious that such words would not have been aired on Saudi-owned television without the prior approval of both King Salman and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. By choosing Prince Bandar, a veteran diplomat and long-standing pillar of the Saudi royal establishment, to deliver them, it is the clearest sign yet that the Saudi leadership may be preparing its population for an eventual deal with Israel. For so many years, especially in the more rural and isolated corners of the kingdom, Saudis have been accustomed to viewing not just Israel as the enemy, but also all Jewish people. But the arrival on the scene of the maverick Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has changed all that. With reports suggesting that the Crown Prince is eager to strike a deal, this would be a seismic shift for the entire region. This week, United States Secretary of State Mike Pompeo urged Saudi Arabia to recognize Israel.
Raised how the Abraham Accords brokered by President Trump contribute greatly
in what would be a strategic boost for the Jewish state amid normalization with two other Gulf Arab kingdoms. So a Saudi-Israeli peace deal, while not necessarily imminent, is now a real possibility. West Asia Bureau, WION World is One.